I have always thought Valentine's Day was supposed to be simple. Flowers, chocolate, maybe a card. But sometimes, the simplest gestures carry the darkest intentions. And sometimes what seems like romance is actually surveillance. I am going to tell you about 5 Valentine's Days that went wrong in ways that still disturb me. 5 times when love became something else entirely. Something dangerous. The first story happened to me when I was 24 years old. I was living alone in a one-bedroom apartment in Denver. I worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm. I had been single for about 8 months after ending a relationship that had run its course. I was not actively looking for anyone new. I was content with my life. My routine was predictable. I woke up at 7, made coffee, worked from 9 to 5, came home, made dinner, watched TV, went to bed around 11. Weekends I spent running errands, seeing friends, or working on freelance projects. Valentine's Day that year fell on a Tuesday. I remember because I had a client meeting scheduled that afternoon, and I was annoyed that restaurants would be crowded if I needed to grab lunch out. I woke up that morning, made my coffee, and started getting ready for work. I lived on the third floor of an older building. There was no doorman, just a main entrance that locked and a buzzer system. Mail was delivered to small boxes in the lobby. When I went downstairs to leave for work, I checked my mailbox out of habit. Inside was a card. A Valentine's Day card. It was in a red envelope with my first name written on it in neat handwriting. No last name. No apartment number. Just my first name. I opened it right there in the lobby. The front of the card had a simple design. Red hearts. Gold lettering that said, Happy Valentine's Day. Inside, the message was handwritten. I have been thinking about you. I hope you have been thinking about me too. There was no signature. No name. Nothing to indicate who sent it. I stood there, staring at the card. My first thought was that it was from someone I knew. Maybe a coworker playing a joke. Maybe someone I had gone on a date with months ago who was testing the waters. I tried to remember if I had mentioned Valentine's Day to anyone recently. I had not. I took the card upstairs and put it on my kitchen counter. I told myself I would ask around at work, see if anyone knew anything. But the whole morning I felt distracted. The card bothered me more than it should have. It was just a card. People send cards, but something about it felt off. At lunch, I mentioned it to 2 coworkers, Sarah and Mike. I said I got a Valentine's card with no name. Sarah said that was sweet. She said maybe I had a secret admirer. Mike laughed and said someone was shooting their shot. Neither of them seemed to think it was strange. I let it go. But that evening, when I got home from work, there was another card. Same red envelope. Same handwriting. This time it was slipped under my apartment door. I picked it up slowly. My hands were shaking a little. I opened it. The card was different. This one had a photograph on the front, a stock image of a couple holding hands. Inside the message said, I saw you leave for work this morning. You looked beautiful in that blue coat. I felt my stomach drop. I had worn a blue coat that morning. It was specific, accurate. Someone had seen me. Someone had been watching. I checked the time. It was 6:15 in the evening. I had gotten home at 6. That meant someone had been here recently. Recently enough to slip the card under my door while I was at work. Or recently enough that they knew exactly when I would be home. I locked my door. I checked the lock twice. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I went to my window and looked down at the street. There were a few people walking. A couple getting into a car. No one standing around. No one looking up. I called Sarah. I told her about the second card. She said it was creepy but probably harmless. She said maybe it was a neighbor who had a crush on me. She said I should just ignore it. If it kept happening, I could report it to my landlord. That sounded reasonable. I tried to calm down, but I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Someone knew what I wore. Someone had been close enough to see me leave my building. Someone knew where I lived. Not just the building. My specific apartment. My door. I did not sleep well that night. I kept waking up, listening for sounds in the hallway. Every creak made me tense. Every distant voice made me hold my breath. I got up twice to check the peephole. Both times, the hallway was empty. The next morning, Wednesday, I left for work earlier than usual. I wanted to avoid whoever had been watching. I left at 7:30 instead of 8:15. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. I looked around the lobby carefully before stepping outside. I did not see anyone suspicious. Just a woman getting her mail. An older man leaving with his dog. I went to work. I tried to focus. But all day I kept thinking about the cards. About the fact that someone was paying attention to me. Someone who knew details. Someone who had access to my building. When I got home that evening, there was a package outside my door. A small box wrapped in red paper with a white ribbon. My name was on a tag attached to the ribbon. Just my first name. Same handwriting as the cards. I did not want to open it. I stood there in the hallway staring at it. Part of me wanted to leave it there, call the police, report it. But what would I say? Someone left me a gift? That was not a crime. I picked up the box and brought it inside. I set it on my kitchen counter next to the two cards. I stared at it for a long time. Finally, I untied the ribbon. I peeled back the paper carefully. Inside was a white gift box. I lifted the lid. Inside was a bracelet, silver, delicate, with a small charm. The charm was a heart with an engraved initial, my initial. I felt cold. This was not a generic gift. This was personal, specific, expensive. Someone had bought this. Someone had it engraved. Someone had planned this. I looked at the bracelet more closely. I turned it over. On the back of the heart charm there was more engraving. Tiny letters. I had to squint to read them. It said, "I know you better than you think." I dropped the bracelet. It clattered onto the counter. I stepped back. My heart was pounding. I grabbed my phone and called the non-emergency police line. I explained the situation. The cards. The package. The engraving. The dispatcher said an officer would come by to take a report. 2 officers arrived about 40 minutes later. I showed them the cards and the bracelet. They asked if I had any idea who might have sent them. I said no. They asked if I had an ex-boyfriend who might be trying to reconnect. I said no. My ex and I had ended things amicably months ago. He had moved to another state. This was not him. The officers took photos of the cards and the bracelet. They said they would file a report. They said to call if anything else happened. They said to be cautious. Lock my doors. Vary my routine. Let friends and coworkers know what was going on. They were professional but not particularly concerned. I could tell they thought it was probably someone harmless. Someone with a crush who did not know how to express it appropriately. But I did not think it was harmless. The engraving bothered me. I know you better than you think. That was not romantic. That was a threat. Thursday morning, I woke up to a text message. It was from an unknown number. The message said, "Did you like your gift? I picked it out just for you." I stared at my phone. Someone had my number. I had not given my number to anyone new in months. I kept my number private on social media. I did not hand it out casually. How did they get it? I did not respond. I blocked the number. I got ready for work. I left early again. I looked over my shoulder the entire walk to the bus stop. At work, I told my boss what was happening. I showed him the text. He said to let him know if I needed anything. He said I could work from home if I felt unsafe. I appreciated the offer, but I did not want to hide. I did not want whoever this was to control my life. That evening, I came home to find flowers outside my door. A dozen red roses in a vase. There was a card attached. The message said, "You have not been answering. I just want to talk." I left them in the hallway. I called the police again. The same 2 officers came back. They took the flowers as evidence. They asked if I had security cameras in my building. I said no. The building was old. There were no cameras in the hallways. Only one at the main entrance. And it had not worked in years. The officers said they would increase patrols in the area. They said to keep documenting everything. They said if the person made direct contact or threatened me, to call 911 immediately. Friday, I worked from home. I did not want to leave my apartment. I did not want to risk coming home to another gift, another card, another message. I stayed inside all day. I ordered food delivery. I kept my curtains closed. I checked the peephole every time I heard a sound in the hallway. Nothing arrived on Friday. I started to think maybe it was over. Maybe the police visit had scared them off. Maybe they had moved on. But Saturday morning, I woke up to find an envelope slipped under my door. I saw it as soon as I walked into my living room. My stomach turned. I picked it up. Inside was a single piece of paper. Printed text. It said, "You told the police about me." That was not very nice. I thought we had something special. I called 911. I told the dispatcher someone had been in my building again. that I was scared, that I wanted an officer to come immediately. They sent someone within 15 minutes. This time, the officer who arrived was different. A woman, maybe in her 40s. She took the note seriously. She asked detailed questions. Had I noticed anyone following me? Had I seen the same person multiple times? Did I have any colleagues, clients, or acquaintances who might have access to my schedule? I thought about it. I went through everyone I could think of. Coworkers, clients, people at my gym, my landlord, neighbors. I could not think of anyone who fit. No one who seemed overly interested. No one who gave me bad vibes. The officer said she would request the building's entry logs if they existed. She said to consider staying with a friend for a few days. She said whoever this was knew my routines in my apartment. She said I should break those routines. Make myself unpredictable. I called my friend Rachel. I asked if I could stay with her for the weekend. She said yes immediately. I packed a bag and left. I did not tell anyone except Rachel where I was going. I turned off location services on my phone. I drove to her place instead of taking the bus. I kept checking my rearview mirror the entire time. No one followed me. At least, no one I could see. I stayed with Rachel for 3 days. Monday, I went back to work. I felt better. I felt safer. No more cards, no more gifts, no more texts. I thought maybe it was over. But when I got home Monday evening, my apartment door was unlocked. I always locked my door. Always. I stood in the hallway staring at the door handle. I called 911. I waited in the stairwell until the police arrived. 2 officers went in first. They checked every room, every closet, under the bed, behind the shower curtain. No one was there. But things had been moved. My laptop was open on my desk. I always closed it. My bedroom curtains were drawn. I always left them open during the day. A chair in my kitchen was pulled out. I always pushed them in. The officers said there was no sign of forced entry. They said someone either had a key or knew how to pick locks. They said I should change my locks immediately. They said I should consider moving. I called my landlord. He sent someone to change the locks that night. I paid extra for rush service. The locksmith installed a deadbolt and a chain lock. He said it would be much harder for someone to get in now, but I did not feel safe. I could not sleep in my apartment. I kept thinking about someone being in there, touching my things, sitting in my chair, looking at my laptop. I stayed with Rachel again that night. Tuesday morning, I got another text from a different unknown number. It said, "New locks will not keep me away. I will always find you." I showed the police. They said they were investigating but had no leads. They said I should consider a restraining order, but I would need to know who to file it against. I did not have a name. I did not have a face. I just had cards and gifts and texts from unknown numbers. I started thinking about who it could be. I went through my past. People I dated briefly. People I met at events. People from college. I made a list. I gave it to the police. They said they would look into it. Weeks went by. The gifts stopped. The texts stopped. I started to breathe again. I started to think maybe they had given up. Maybe they realized I was not going to respond. Maybe they moved on to someone else. But then, 2 months later, I got a card in the mail, at my new address. I had moved. I had not told anyone except my employer, the post office, and a few close friends. I had been so careful. But somehow they found me. The card said, "I hope you are settling into your new place. I will visit soon." I never found out who it was. The police never identified a suspect. I moved again. I changed my phone number. I locked down all my social media. I became hyper-vigilant about my privacy. But I still think about those Valentine's cards. About the bracelet. About the unlocked door. About the fact that someone watched me closely enough to know what I wore, where I lived, where I moved. Someone who had access I never gave them. Someone who is still out there. Looking back, I realized the first card was not the beginning. It was just the first time I noticed. They had probably been watching for much longer than that week. They knew too much. They were too prepared. And I will never know how long it really went on before I noticed, or if it ever truly ended. After I moved the second time, after I thought I had finally gotten away, I started finding things in my new apartment. Small things. A coffee cup in my cabinet that I did not buy. A book on my shelf that was not mine. A pen on my desk that I had never seen before. At first I thought I was forgetting things, that maybe I had bought these items and did not remember. But then I started paying closer attention. The coffee cup had my initials on it. Not printed. Engraved. Someone had it made. The book had a note inside the front cover. It said, "I thought you would enjoy this." The pen had an inscription, "For the writer in you." I was not a writer. I was a graphic designer. But I had mentioned in college, years ago, that I wanted to write a novel someday. How did they know that? I started documenting everything. I took photos. I made lists. I tried to figure out when these items appeared. I reviewed my credit card statements. I had not purchased any of them. I asked my friends if they had given them to me. They had not. I realized someone was still getting into my apartment. Even after I moved. Even after I changed all my locks. Even after I told no one my new address except my employer and the post office. I installed cameras. Small ones. Hidden in my bookshelf, my kitchen, my bedroom. I checked them every day. For 2 weeks, nothing. Then one day I reviewed the footage and saw something that made my blood run cold. A person had been in my apartment while I was at work. They came in through the front door. They had a key. They walked around slowly looking at my things. They touched my books. They sat on my couch. They stood in my bedroom looking at my bed. They did not take anything. They did not leave anything visible. They just walked around. For 20 minutes. Then they left. I could not see their face. They wore a hood. Gloves. They knew where the cameras were. They avoided looking directly at them. But I could see their build. Tall. Thin. Could have been a man or a woman. I could not tell. I took the footage to the police. They said they would investigate. They asked if I recognized anything about the person. Clothing, gait, anything. I said no. They said without a clear image of the face there was not much they could do. They said to change my locks again, to add more cameras, to consider moving again. I could not keep moving. I could not keep changing my life to avoid this person. I felt trapped. I felt like they were always one step ahead, like they knew what I would do before I did it. I started thinking about how they got my new address. I had been so careful. I had not updated my address on social media. I had not told old friends. I had my mail forwarded to a P.O. box. But somehow, they found me. I realized they must have followed me. Maybe they followed the moving truck. Maybe they saw me at my new building. Maybe they had been watching the whole time and I never noticed. That thought terrified me. How long had they been following me? How many times had they been close without me seeing them? How many times had I walked past them, sat near them, stood in line behind them, completely unaware? I became hypervigilant. I looked at every person on the street, every person on the bus, every person in the grocery store. I searched for someone who seemed too interested, someone who looked familiar, someone who watched too long. But I never found them. Either they were very good at blending in, or I had no idea what they looked like. I considered hiring a private investigator. But what would I tell them? I am being watched by someone I have never seen. Someone who leaves me gifts and gets into my apartment. Someone who has been doing this for years. It sounded insane. I considered moving out of state, starting completely over. New name, new job, new life. But would that even work? They had found me twice already. What would stop them from finding me a third time? I still live in that apartment. I have not moved again. I have 7 cameras now. I changed the locks 4 times. I installed a security system with monitoring. I have pepper spray in every room. I have a plan for if they come back while I am home. But they have not come back. At least, not that I can see. The cameras have not caught anyone in 6 months. No new items have appeared. No new cards. No new messages. But I know they are still out there. I know they are still watching. Because 2 months ago I received an email from a new address I did not recognize. The subject line said, "Happy Valentine's Day." The message said, "I am still thinking about you." I reported it. I blocked it. But it does not matter. They can create new emails, new accounts. They can keep reaching out forever. And I will never know when it will stop. If it will stop. That is what people do not understand about being stalked. It is not just about the fear when it is happening. It is about the fear that never goes away. The knowledge that someone out there knows you, thinks about you, watches you, and could come back at any time. Every Valentine's Day now feels like a threat, like a reminder, like a countdown. I do not celebrate it anymore. I do not go out. I do not accept gifts. I just stay home and wait for it to pass, and hope that this year there will be no card, no message, no sign that they remember. But they always remember, and I think they always will. This is the next story. This one happened to my coworker Lisa. She told me about it a few years ago. Lisa was 31 at the time. She had been seeing someone, a guy named Derek, for about 4 months. They met on a dating app. He seemed nice. Normal job, normal hobbies, normal life. They had been on maybe 10 or 12 dates. Nothing too serious yet, but it was going well. Valentine's Day was coming up, and Derek suggested they go to dinner. Somewhere nice. He said he would handle the reservation. Lisa agreed. She was excited. She had not had a serious Valentine's Day date in a couple of years. Derek texted her the details. He said he made a reservation at an Italian restaurant downtown. 7:30. He said to meet him there. He had something to do beforehand and it would be easier to meet at the restaurant than to pick her up. Lisa thought that was a little odd but not concerning. She got ready. She wore a black dress, heels. She did her makeup. She felt good. She took an Uber to the restaurant. She arrived a few minutes early around 7:25. She walked into the restaurant and went to the host stand. She said she had a reservation under Derek's name. The host checked the list. He looked confused. He said he did not see that name. He asked her to spell it. She did. He checked again. He said there was no reservation under that name. Lisa felt embarrassed. She stepped aside and texted Derek. She said she was at the restaurant, but they did not have a reservation under his name. Maybe he used a different name or different spelling. She waited for a response. A minute later, the host called her back over. He said he did have a reservation at 7:30, but it was under her name, Lisa's name. She was confused. She said she did not make the reservation. The host said the reservation was definitely under her name. He showed her the system. There it was. Her full name. Lisa Carter. Table for two. 7:30. Lisa texted Derek again. She said the reservation is under my name, not yours. Did you use my name when you called? She waited. No response. The host asked if she wanted to be seated. Lisa said she would wait for her date to arrive. She stood near the entrance, checking her phone every few seconds. 7:30 came and went. No Derek. No text. No call. At 7:40 she tried calling him. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Same thing. She felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. Something was wrong. The host approached her again. He said her table was ready whenever she was. He seemed sympathetic. He could probably tell she was being stood up. Lisa thanked him and said she would wait a few more minutes. At 7:50, a man approached her. He was maybe in his mid-30s. Average height. He was smiling. He said, "Lisa?" She said yes. He said, "I am so glad you are here. I was worried you would not show up." Lisa was confused. She said, "I am sorry, do I know you?" The man's smile faded a little. He said, "It is me. We have been talking for weeks. I made the reservation." Lisa felt cold. She said, "I think you have the wrong person. I am waiting for someone else." The man looked hurt. He said, "No, you are Lisa. I made the reservation under your name. We have been planning this." Lisa took a step back. She said, "I do not know you. I think there has been a mistake." The man pulled out his phone. He showed her a screen. It was a messaging app. Messages between him and someone named Lisa. Messages about meeting for Valentine's Day dinner. Messages that sounded flirty, romantic. But Lisa had never sent them. She did not recognize the account. She said, "That is not me. I did not send those messages." The man looked confused now. He said, "But you are Lisa Carter, right? You work at a marketing firm. You live on Elm Street." Lisa's blood went cold. That was her address, her workplace. "How did he know that?" she said. "How do you know where I live?" The man said, "You told me. In the messages. You said you lived near the park on Elm Street." Lisa had never told anyone that in any app. She was very careful about personal information. She said, "I did not send you any messages. Someone is pretending to be me." The man looked upset. He said, "This does not make sense. We have been talking for 3 weeks. You sent me your picture. You told me about your job. You said you wanted to meet for Valentine's Day." Lisa pulled out her phone. She opened her dating apps. She checked her messages. She did not have any conversations with this man. She showed him her phone. She said, "I do not have any messages from you. I think someone created a fake account using my information." The man stared at her phone. He looked genuinely distressed. He said, "I do not understand. We have been talking every day." Lisa felt a wave of fear. Someone had been pretending to be her. Someone had been using her name, her address, her workplace, her photo. Someone had been talking to this man for weeks. And someone had set up this meeting. She said, "I am really sorry, but I think we are both being tricked. I did not make this reservation. I am here to meet someone else." The man looked around. He said, "Where is he?" She checked her phone. No messages. No calls. She tried calling him again. Voicemail. The man said, "I think someone is messing with both of us." Lisa nodded. She felt sick. She said, "I need to go." She turned to leave, but the man grabbed her arm. Not hard, but enough to stop her. He said, "Wait, can I see your phone? I want to check something." Lisa pulled her arm away. She said, "No, I am leaving." She walked quickly toward the exit. The man followed her. He said, "Please, I just want to understand what is happening." Lisa pushed through the door and onto the street. It was cold. She had not brought a jacket. She looked for an Uber. The man came outside after her. He said, "Lisa, please, just talk to me for a minute." Lisa started walking. She walked fast. The man kept following. He said, "I am not trying to scare you. I just want to know what is going on. Someone used my information too. They knew my name. They knew things about me." She said, "What do you mean?" The man said, "The person I was messaging knew details about me that I never shared publicly. They knew where I worked. They knew I was going to be in this neighborhood tonight." Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. She said, "Someone is watching both of us." The man nodded. He said, "I think so." Lisa said, "I need to call the police." She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. She explained the situation. The dispatcher said an officer would come to the restaurant. Lisa and the man, whose name was Andrew, waited outside. They stood a few feet apart. Neither of them said much. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. Lisa and Andrew explained everything. The fake messages. The reservation. The personal information that someone should not have known. The officer took their statements. He said it sounded like someone was catfishing both of them. He said they should report it to the apps they were using. He said to be careful about sharing personal information online. But Lisa knew she had not shared that information. She had been careful. Someone had found it another way. Someone had been watching her. The officer said there was not much he could do without more evidence. He said if they received any threatening messages, to report them immediately. He said to change passwords and enable two-factor authentication on all accounts. Lisa went home. She never heard from Derek again. She tried texting and calling for days. His number was disconnected, his profile on the dating app was deleted. She went through every message they had ever sent. She looked for clues. She found nothing. She realized Derek might not have been real. Or he was real but was part of the setup. Either way, she had been lured to that restaurant. Someone wanted her to meet Andrew. Someone had orchestrated the entire thing. But why? What was the point? She never found out. Weeks later, she got a message on social media. It was from a new account with no profile picture. The message said, "I hope you enjoyed your Valentine's dinner. Sorry it did not work out with Derek." But it kept happening. New accounts, new messages, always referencing Valentine's Day, always referencing Derek, always proving that someone knew what happened that night. Lisa deleted all her dating apps. She locked down her social media. She changed her phone number. She moved apartments. But she still gets messages. Not often. Maybe once every few months. Always from new accounts. Always saying something that proves they know who she is and where she is. She told me this story because she wanted me to know. She said most people do not realize how much information is out there about them. How easy it is for someone to piece together your life from social media, public records, photos, tags, check-ins. She said someone built a profile of her detailed enough to impersonate her. And she still does not know who or why. And Lisa's story did not end with the restaurant either. I did not mention this before, but after that night, after the fake reservation and the man named Andrew who had been catfished just like her, Lisa started digging into what happened. She created a new email address. She searched for her name online. She found things she did not know existed. Old photos of her that had been posted to forums. Screenshots of her social media from years ago, even accounts she had deleted. Someone had been archiving her information for a long time. She found a profile on a dating site she had never used. It had her name, her photo, her job, her interests. It was detailed, accurate, but she had never created it. She reported it. The site took it down, but a week later it was back. Different site. Same information. She hired a cybersecurity consultant. He searched for her digital footprint. He found accounts on 12 different platforms that she had never created. All of them had her information, her photos, her bio. Some of them had been active for years. Someone had been pretending to be her, talking to people, making connections, building relationships. The consultant said whoever did this was sophisticated. They knew how to avoid detection. They used VPNs. They created realistic profiles. They maintained them over time. It was not a quick harassment campaign. It was long-term identity theft for the purpose of control. Lisa contacted every platform. Most of them took down the fake accounts, but new ones kept appearing. On smaller sites, on forums, on apps she had never heard of. It was like playing whack-a-mole. She could not keep up. She changed her name on social media. She made everything private. She deleted old photos. She stopped posting. But it did not matter. The person had enough information already. They had years of archived content. They could keep creating profiles forever. The messages continued, from new accounts. Always short. Always referencing Valentine's Day or Derek or the restaurant. Always proving they knew what happened. Lisa started wondering if Derek was real at all. Maybe Derek was the person who set her up. Maybe Derek never existed. Maybe it was all fabricated to get her to that restaurant, to meet Andrew, to scare her. She searched for Derek online. She found nothing. No social media. No public records. No trace of anyone by that name in the city. It was like he had been erased, or had never existed. She contacted Andrew, the man from the restaurant. She asked if he had found out anything about who catfished him. He said no. He said he tried to investigate but hit dead ends. He said whoever did it covered their tracks well. They compared notes. They realized the person who messaged both of them knew specific details about their lives. Details that were not public. Details they had only shared with close friends or family. Someone had access to their private information. Someone had been listening. Lisa started thinking about who could have that kind of access. She thought about her coworkers, her neighbors, her family, anyone who might have overheard conversations or seen her messages or known her routines. She could not figure it out. There was no one in her life who made sense. No one who seemed suspicious. No one who had the skills or the motive. Unless it was someone she did not know. Someone who had been watching from afar. Someone who made it their hobby to collect information about strangers and use it against them. That thought was somehow worse. Because if it was a stranger, she would never find them. She would never understand why. She would never get answers. The last message she received was 3 months ago. It said, "I have moved on, but I wanted you to know I enjoyed our time together." Lisa does not know if that is true. She does not know if the person really moved on or if they are just lying low, waiting, planning the next move. She told me she still checks her name online every week. She still looks for fake profiles. She still gets alerts when her name appears somewhere new. She still lives in fear that one day she will find something worse. A threat, an address, a photo of her home. She said the hardest part is not knowing if it is over, not knowing if she is safe, not knowing if the person is watching right now, reading about herself in this story, smiling because they know she is still afraid. The next story happened a few years earlier. I worked at a small tech startup, about 30 employees. We all knew each other fairly well. Every year the office did a Valentine's Day exchange. It was supposed to be fun. Everyone put their name in a basket, and you drew a name. You were supposed to give that person a small gift or card. Nothing expensive, $5 to $10. Just something nice. It was voluntary, but most people participated. I had been working there for about 6 months. I was 26. I liked my job, I liked my coworkers. I put my name in the basket, I drew a name. A guy from the sales team named Jason, I barely knew him. But I bought him a coffee gift card and a funny card. Easy. Valentine's Day was on a Thursday that year. People started putting gifts on desks in the morning. Little bags of candy, flowers, cards. It was cute. I got to work around 8:30. There was already something on my desk. A red gift bag with tissue paper. I looked inside. There was a box of expensive chocolates, the fancy kind from a boutique chocolatier downtown. There was a card. It said, "I have been watching you. You are special." I laughed. I thought it was a joke. Someone being dramatic. I looked around the office. A few people were at their desks. I called out, "Okay, who is trying to be creepy?" A couple of people looked up and smiled. No one claimed it. I opened the chocolates. They were beautiful, hand-decorated. They must have cost at least $30 or $40. Way more than the suggested limit. I felt a little uncomfortable, but I told myself someone just went overboard. Maybe they really liked chocolate and wanted to share the nice stuff. I ate one. It was delicious. I put the box in my desk drawer and got to work. At lunch, I went to the break room. A few coworkers were there. I mentioned the chocolates. I said someone really went all out. My coworker Emily asked to see the card. I showed her. She said it was weird. She said the exchange was supposed to be light-hearted, not intense. I agreed, but I did not think it was a big deal. That afternoon, I found another gift on my desk. A small, wrapped box. I opened it. Inside was a bracelet. Silver. Delicate. It looked expensive. There was another card. This one said, "I know you do not wear much jewelry, but I think this would look beautiful on you." I felt a prickle of unease. That was true. I did not wear much jewelry. I usually just wore stud earrings and my watch. How did they know that? I asked around. I went to a few people's desks and asked if they put the bracelet on my desk. Everyone said no. I asked our office manager, Karen, if she knew who drew my name. She said the exchange was anonymous. She did not keep track of who drew who. I put the bracelet back in the box and put it in my drawer. I tried to focus on work, but I kept thinking about the card. "I know you do not wear much jewelry." That felt personal, observational. Someone had been paying attention. The next morning, Friday, there was a rose on my desk. A single red rose in a small vase. There was a note tied to it. The note said, "You looked tired yesterday. I hope you got some rest." I had been tired. I stayed up late Wednesday night finishing a project. But how did they know? I had not told anyone. I just came to work, did my job, went home. I started to feel watched. I looked around the office. Who could it be? I went through my coworkers in my head. There were a few guys around my age. A couple of them had been friendly. But no one had ever crossed a line. No one had asked me out. No one had made me uncomfortable. At lunch, I talked to Emily again. I showed her the rose and the note. She said it was getting creepy. She said I should report it to HR. I said I did not want to make a big deal out of it. It was probably just someone with a crush who did not know how to express it appropriately. But that afternoon, I found an envelope on my desk. Inside was a photo of me. It was taken from across the street from my apartment building. I was getting out of my car. I was wearing the same clothes I wore on Tuesday. This photo was taken 2 days ago. I felt my hands start shaking. Someone had followed me home. Someone had taken my picture without me knowing. Someone in this office knew where I lived. I went straight to HR. I showed them everything. The chocolates, the bracelet, the rose, the photo. The office manager, Karen, looked horrified. She said this was completely unacceptable. She said she would investigate immediately. She called a meeting with everyone in the office. She said the Valentine exchange was supposed to be fun and respectful. She said if anyone had information about who was leaving inappropriate gifts, they needed to come forward. She said there would be consequences. No one said anything. Everyone looked confused. A few people looked at me sympathetically. I felt embarrassed. I felt like I had ruined the fun tradition. But that evening, after everyone left, I stayed late to finish some work. I was alone in the office. It was around 7. I heard a sound. I looked up. Someone was standing in the doorway of my cubicle. It was Marcus, a guy from the IT department. We had talked a few times. He had helped me set up my computer when I started. He seemed nice, quiet. He said, "I am glad you are still here. I wanted to talk to you." I said, "About what?" He said, "About the gifts." I felt my heart start racing. I said, "Did you leave them?" He smiled. He said, "I wanted to do something special for you. I thought you would like them." I said, "You took a photo of me at my apartment. That is not okay." He looked confused. He said, "I wanted to show you that I pay attention. That I care. I stood up. I said, "That is not caring. That is stalking." His expression changed. He said, "Do not say that. I am not a stalker. I just like you." I said, "You do not even know me." He said, "Yes, I do. I know you take the bus to work. I know you get coffee from the shop on the corner every Monday. I know you listen to music at your desk. I know you stay late on Thursdays to avoid traffic. I know you." I felt sick. He had been watching me, paying attention to my routines, my habits. I said, "I am going to report this." He said, "I already know. Karen told everyone to come forward, but I am not doing anything wrong. I am just showing you that I care." I grabbed my bag and walked past him. He did not try to stop me. He just stood there, watching. I walked quickly to the elevator. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely press the button. I got in the elevator and watched the doors close. Marcus did not follow. I went straight to my car. I drove home. I locked my doors. I called the office manager. I told her it was Marcus. I told her what he said. She said she would handle it first thing Monday morning. That weekend, I stayed inside. I did not go anywhere. I kept my curtains closed. On Monday, I found out Marcus had been fired. Karen said he admitted to leaving the gifts. He said he did not understand why it was a problem. He said he was just trying to be romantic. But it did not stop there. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, at my apartment. It was from Marcus. It said he was sorry for scaring me. It said he just wanted a chance. It said he knew we could be good together if I gave him a chance. I reported it to the police. They said unless he threatened me, there was not much they could do. They said to keep the letter as evidence. They said to call if he showed up at my home or work. He did not show up. But I kept getting letters. One every few weeks. Always saying the same thing. That he was sorry. That he cared. That he was waiting for me. I moved. I changed my phone number. I quit my job. I could not stay there knowing he knew where I worked. Knowing he had been watching me every day without me realizing it. The letters stopped after I moved. But I still think about it. About how long he had been watching before the Valentine exchange gave him an excuse to reach out. About how many days I sat at my desk, completely unaware that someone was documenting my routine, learning my patterns, waiting. The workplace story has more to it too, more that I did not say. After Marcus was fired, after the letters started coming, I thought about everything he had said, about how he knew my routines, my schedule, my habits. I realized he had been watching me from the beginning, from my first day. I asked HR for access to the security footage. They were reluctant, but I pushed. I said I needed to understand the extent of the surveillance. They finally agreed. I reviewed months of footage. I watched myself arrive every morning, leave every evening. I watched myself go to lunch, go to the bathroom, go to meetings. And in almost every frame, if I looked carefully, I could see Marcus. In the background, at his desk, in the hallway, in the parking lot. Always positioned where he could see me. I counted the times he appeared in frame when I was there, over 90% of the time. He was always watching, even when I did not know he was there, even when I thought I was alone. I found footage of him going to my desk when I was not there. He would stand there, looking at my things. He never touched anything. He just looked, like he was memorizing the layout, like he was studying me. I showed HR. They were disturbed. They said they had no idea it was that extensive. They said they would cooperate with any police investigation. But the police said unless he had taken something or damaged something, it was not illegal. Creepy, but not criminal. I requested all emails Marcus had sent internally. HR provided them. I found dozens of emails where he mentioned me. He would find excuses to include me in conversations. He would ask questions about my projects. He would CC me on things that did not involve me. He was creating a paper trail, a record of interactions, making it seem like we had a relationship when we barely spoke. I looked at the timestamps. Some of the emails were sent at 2 or 3 in the morning. He was thinking about me in the middle of the night, writing to me even though I would not see the emails until the next day. I felt sick. I had worked in the same building as him for 6 months. I had no idea he was obsessed. I had no idea he was documenting every moment. I had no idea I was being watched every single day. After I quit, after I moved, I thought about how much information he had collected, how many photos he might have taken, how many notes he might have written, how much he knew about me that I never intended to share. I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media. I moved to a new city and got a new job. I told no one where I went except my family, and I made them promise not to share it. For a year, nothing happened. No letters, no messages, no signs of Marcus. I started to think maybe he really had moved on. Maybe he found someone else to obsess over. Maybe I was safe. From a profile with no photo. The name was generic. John Smith. The message said, "I saw you are working at a new company. Congratulations on the new role." I had not updated my LinkedIn. I had not listed my new employer. But someone knew. Someone was still checking on me. Still keeping track. I deleted my LinkedIn. I locked down every privacy setting on every platform. But it did not matter. The information was already out there. My name, my face, my work history. Anyone determined enough could find me. I reported it to my new employer's HR. I told them I had a stalking history. I asked them not to confirm my employment to anyone who called. I asked them to keep my information private. They said they would. But a month later, another message came, this time to my work email, the one I had not given to anyone except colleagues. The message said, "Your new office looks nice. I hope you are settling in well." I felt my hands go cold. How did they know what my office looked like? Had they been inside the building? Had they followed me to work? Were they watching me right now? I told my manager. He took it seriously. He contacted building security. They reviewed footage. They did not find anyone suspicious. But that did not mean Marcus was not there. He could have been careful. He could have blended in. He could have looked like any other person in the building. I started working from home. I told my manager I did not feel safe in the office. He understood. He said I could work remotely as long as I needed. But working from home did not help, because Marcus knew where I lived too. Or he could find out. And if he was willing to find my office, he was willing to find my home. I considered a restraining order. But I had no proof the messages were from him. The accounts were anonymous. The IP addresses were masked. I could not prove anything. I lived like that for 2 years. Working from home, checking over my shoulder, jumping at every sound. Then the messages stopped. No explanation. They just stopped. It has been 3 years now. I have not heard from him. I do not know if he is still out there. I do not know if he thinks about me. I do not know if he has moved on or if he is just waiting. But I know I will never feel completely safe, because he proved he could find me. He proved he could watch me without me knowing. He proved he could get access to places I thought were secure, and that knowledge does not go away, even after the messages stop. Even after years of silence, the fear remains. This next story is the one that still bothers me. It is about someone I dated briefly. His name was Alex. We met at a friend's party. We hit it off. We went on a few dates, maybe 5 or 6 over the course of 2 months. It was casual. We were not exclusive. We were just seeing where it went. But then I realized it was not going anywhere. Alex was nice, but I did not feel a connection. I told him I thought we should just be friends. He seemed okay with it. He said he understood. He said no hard feelings. We stopped seeing each other. I did not hear from him for a few months. Then Valentine's Day came around. I was single. I was not seeing anyone. I was planning to spend the evening with friends. We were going to have dinner and watch movies. Nothing romantic. Just a fun night. That morning, I got a text from Alex. It said, "Happy Valentine's Day. I know we are not together, but I wanted you to know I am still thinking about you." I thought it was sweet but a little awkward. I texted back, "Thanks. Hope you have a good day too." But that evening, when I got home from work, there was a package outside my door. It was wrapped in red paper with a bow. There was a card attached. The card said, "For old time's sake." I brought it inside and opened it. Inside was a bottle of wine. The same wine we had on our first date. I remembered because it was a specific type I had mentioned liking. I was surprised he remembered. I texted him, "Thanks for the wine. You did not have to do that." He responded, "I wanted to. You deserve something special today." I felt a little uncomfortable, but I told myself he was just being nice. We had ended things on good terms. Maybe he was trying to be friendly. I put the wine in my kitchen and went to meet my friends. We had a good night. Dinner was fun. We laughed a lot. I got home around 11. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. Everything seemed normal. I locked the door behind me. I went to my bedroom to change into pajamas. That is when I saw it. On my bed, a single red rose, and a note. I did not bring a rose home. I did not buy one. I had been out all evening. I stood in my doorway, staring at my bed. My heart was pounding. I picked up the note. It said, "I let myself in to leave you something special. I hope you do not mind. I still have the key you gave me." I had given Alex a key to my apartment a few weeks into dating. I had forgotten to ask for it back when we broke up. I assumed he would throw it away or leave it somewhere. I never thought he would keep it. I never thought he would use it. I grabbed my phone and called him. He answered on the second ring. He sounded happy, he said. "Did you get my surprise?" I said, "You were in my apartment?" He said, "I wanted to do something nice for you." I said, "You cannot just come into my apartment without permission. That is not okay." He said, "But I have a key. You gave it to me." I said, "We are not together anymore. You should have given it back." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I thought you would like it. I thought it was romantic." I said, "It is not romantic. It is a violation. I need you to mail me the key or drop it off. Do not come into my apartment again." He said, "You are overreacting. I was just trying to be nice." I said, "I am serious. Do not contact me again. Do not come to my apartment. Give me the key back." He hung up. I called my landlord. I told him what happened. He said he could not change the locks until Monday, but he would put a rush on it. I asked a friend if I could stay the night. She said yes. I packed a bag and left. Monday morning, I called a locksmith myself. I could not wait for the landlord. I paid extra for same-day service. They came that afternoon and changed all the locks. I felt a little better, a little safer. But that night, I got a text from Alex. It said, "I saw you changed the locks. That really hurt my feelings." I felt a chill. How did he know I changed the locks? Had he tried to use the key? Had he come by and seen the locksmith? Was he watching my apartment? I did not respond. I blocked his number. I blocked him on all social media. I told my friends and my landlord not to give him any information about me. But the texts kept coming from different numbers. "I just want to talk. You are being unfair. I did not do anything wrong. I care about you." I reported it to the police. They said I could file for a restraining order. I did. I had to go to court. I had to explain everything. The key, the texts, the rose. The judge granted the order. Alex was not allowed to contact me or come within 500 feet of my home or workplace. I thought that would be the end of it. But it was not. A few weeks later, I was at a coffee shop near my office. I was in line, waiting to order. I felt someone standing close behind me. Too close. I turned around. It was Alex. He smiled. He said, "Hey, how have you been?" I stepped away. I said, "You are not supposed to be near me. I have a restraining order." He said, "I am just getting coffee. This is a public place." I said, "You are violating the order." He said, "I did not know you would be here. This is just a coincidence." I did not believe him. I left without ordering. I called the police from my car. They said unless he threatened me or physically stopped me from leaving, there was not much they could do. They said coincidentally being in the same place was not a violation unless I could prove he was following me. But I knew it was not a coincidence. That coffee shop was not near his home or workplace. He had no reason to be there. He was there because I was there. It kept happening. I would see him at the grocery store, at the gym, at a restaurant, always. Somewhere I went regularly. Always acting surprised to see me, always claiming it was a coincidence. I changed gyms. I changed grocery stores. I varied my routine. I stopped going to my favorite places. I felt like I was the one being punished. Then, about 2 months after the restraining order, I came home from work and found my apartment door slightly open. I had locked it that morning. I knew I had. I called the police. They came and checked the apartment. Nothing was missing. Nothing was disturbed. But someone had been inside. The lock had been picked. The police said to install better locks. They said to get a security system. They said there was no proof it was Alex. But I knew it was him. I knew he was escalating. I knew he was not going to stop. I moved. I did not tell anyone where I was going except my employer and my closest friends. I made them promise not to share my address. I got a P.O. box for mail. I stopped posting on social media. I became. It has been 3 years. I have not seen Alex since. But I still check over my shoulder. I still vary my routine. I still feel like he might be watching. Because he was so good at appearing where I was. So good at making it seem like coincidence. So good at convincing everyone else that I was overreacting. I do not know if he is still looking for me. I do not know if he has moved on. I do not know if one day I will turn around and he will be there, smiling, saying it is just a coincidence. This is the final story. It is the longest and the most disturbing. This happened to a woman named Julia. I met her at a support group for people who have experienced stalking. She shared this story, and it stayed with me. She said I could retell it if it helped other people understand how carefully these things can be planned. Julia was 33. She had been dating her boyfriend Michael for about a year. Things were going well. Michael suggested they take a Valentine's Day trip, a long weekend getaway to a small mountain town about 3 hours away. There was a nice hotel, good restaurants, hiking trails. It sounded perfect. Julia agreed. Michael said he would book everything, the hotel, the restaurant reservations, the activities. He said he wanted to surprise her. Julia appreciated it. She was busy with work and did not have time to plan. They left on Friday afternoon. Michael drove. Julia was in the passenger seat. They talked and listened to music. The drive was pleasant. They arrived at the hotel around 6 in the evening. It was a small boutique hotel. Very charming. Stone exterior, big windows, a fireplace in the lobby. They checked in. The woman at the front desk was friendly. She said their room was ready. She handed them 2 key cards. Room 214. Second floor. She said breakfast was included, served from 7 to 10. They took their bags and went upstairs. The hallway was quiet, dimly lit. Their room was at the end of the hall. Michael unlocked the door and they went inside. The room was nice. A queen bed with white linens. A small sitting area. A bathroom. With a clawfoot tub. Big windows overlooking the street. Julia said it was perfect. Michael smiled. He said he was glad she liked it. They unpacked and got ready for dinner. Michael had made a reservation at a restaurant a few blocks away. They walked there. It was cold, but the town was pretty. Lights in the windows. Snow on the ground. Very romantic. Dinner was good. They talked and laughed. Julia felt happy. Michael was attentive. He ordered a bottle of wine. He toasted to them, to their relationship, to more trips like this. After dinner, they walked back to the hotel. It was around 9:30. They went up to their room. Julia said she wanted to take a bath. She filled the tub and got in. Michael said he would watch TV. Julia soaked in the tub for maybe 20 minutes. She was relaxed. She was thinking about how nice the trip was. Then she heard a sound. A beep. Like a door lock. She froze. She listened. She heard the door to their room open. She heard voices. Michael's voice. And another voice. A woman's voice. Julia got out of the tub. She wrapped a towel around herself. She opened the bathroom door slightly. She could see into the room. Michael was standing near the door. A woman was with him. The woman from the front desk. Julia could not hear what they were saying. They were speaking quietly. Then the woman handed Michael something. An envelope. Michael opened it. He looked inside. He nodded. The woman left. The door closed. Julia stepped out of the bathroom. She said, "What was that?" He said, "Oh, that was nothing. She just brought up extra towels." Julia said, "I heard her give you something." Michael said, "It was just a coupon for breakfast. A lot of hotels do that." Julia said, "Can I see it?" Then he said, "I threw it away. It was not important." Julia said, "Why would she come to our room to give you a coupon? Could she not just leave it at the desk?" Michael said, "I do not know. Maybe she was just being nice." She told herself she was being paranoid. She got dressed and got into bed. Michael joined her. They watched TV for a while and then went to sleep. But Julia could not shake the feeling that something was off. She woke up several times during the night. Each time she checked the door, it was locked. She checked the windows. They were closed. Everything seemed fine, but she could not relax. Saturday morning, they went down to breakfast. The dining room was small. A few other couples were there. Julia and Michael sat at a table near the window. Julia noticed the woman from the front desk watching them from across the room. When their eyes met, the woman looked away quickly. Julia said to Michael, "That woman keeps looking at us." Michael said, She is probably just making sure we have everything we need. Julia said, "It feels like more than that." Michael said, "You are being paranoid." After breakfast, they went for a walk around the town. They looked in shops. They took photos. Michael was attentive and affectionate. Julia tried to enjoy herself, but she kept thinking about the woman from the front desk, about the envelope, about the way Michael lied about it being a coupon. That afternoon, they went back to the hotel to rest before dinner. Julia said she wanted to take a shower. She went into the bathroom and closed the door. She turned on the water. Then she heard it again. The beep of the door lock. The door opening. Julia turned off the water. She stayed in the bathroom, listening. She heard Michael talking to someone. A man's voice this time. She could not make out the words. She cracked the bathroom door and peeked out. Michael was standing near the bed. A man in a hotel uniform was with him. They were looking at something on Michael's phone. Michael was nodding. The man said something and left. Julia came out. She said, "What was that?" Michael looked startled. He said, "Room service. I ordered some snacks for later." Julia said, "Room service comes to show you a menu?" Michael said, "No, I just had a question about the order." Julia said, "What did you order?" Michael said, "Cheese and crackers." "Wine. Just something light." Julia said, "Can I see the receipt?" Michael said, "They did not give me one yet." "It will come with the order." Julia felt her stomach tighten. She said, "Michael, something is not right. Why do people keep coming to our room?" Michael said, "They are just doing their jobs. You are overthinking this." Julia said, "No, something is wrong. I want to leave." Michael said, "We just got here. We have plans. Dinner reservations. A hike tomorrow. You are being irrational." Julia said, "I do not care. I am leaving." She started packing her bag. Michael watched her. He did not try to stop her. He just stood there, watching. Julia felt a wave of fear. This was not right. This was not how he should be reacting. She grabbed her bag and her purse. She said, "I am going to the front desk to check out." Michael said, "Fine. I will meet you down there." Julia left the room. She walked quickly down the hallway to the elevator. She pressed the button. The elevator doors opened. She got in. As the doors closed, she saw Michael step into the hallway. He was watching her. He was not angry. He was calm. Too calm. The same woman was there. Julia said, "I need to check out." The woman said, "Is everything okay?" Julia said, "No, I just need to leave." She typed on the computer. She frowned. She said, "It looks like your reservation is under Michael's name. He will need to authorize the checkout." Julia said, "I do not care. I am leaving. Charge the card on file." The woman said, "I cannot do that without his approval." Julia felt panic rising. She said, "I do not need his approval. I am a guest too." The woman said, "But he made the reservation. The room is in his name." Julia said, "Fine. I will leave without checking out." She turned to go. The woman said, "Wait. Where are you going?" Julia did not answer. She walked out of the hotel. It was getting dark. She did not have her car. Michael had driven. She did not know the area. She pulled out her phone to call an Uber. No signal. She looked at her phone. One bar. She tried to open the app. It would not load. She walked down the street, trying to find better reception. Nothing. She saw a small coffee shop. She went inside. She asked the barista if they had Wi-Fi. The barista said yes, and gave her the password. Julia connected. She opened the Uber app. No drivers available in this area. She tried Lyft. Same thing. She felt trapped. She asked the barista if there was a taxi service. The barista said there used to be, but it shut down a few months ago. The barista said most people just drove themselves or got rides from friends. Julia sat down at a table. She tried to think. She could call a friend to come get her, but it was a 3-hour drive. It was already after 6. It would be 9 or 10 before anyone could get here. She did not want to wait that long. She did not want to be in this town any longer than necessary. She decided to go back to the hotel. She would get her car keys from Michael. She would drive herself home, even if it meant confronting him. She walked back to the hotel. The lobby was empty. She went to the elevator. She rode up to the second floor. She walked down the hallway to room 214. She knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. She tried the handle. Locked. She used her keycard. It did not work. The light blinked red. She tried again. Same thing. Julia felt cold. Her keycard did not work. Michael had deactivated it. She went back downstairs to the front desk. A different person was there now. A man. Julia explained that her keycard was not working. The man checked the computer. He said, "It looks like you checked out." Julia said, "No, I did not check out." The man said, "According to our system, Michael checked out about 20 minutes ago." Julia said, "Where did he go?" He did not say. Julia said, "Was he alone?" The man said, "I was not here. I just started my shift." Julia felt dizzy. She said, "Can you call his cell phone? It should be on the reservation." Julia said, "He is my boyfriend. We came here together. He left without me." The man looked uncomfortable. He said, "I am sorry, but I cannot help you." Julia went back outside. She tried calling Michael. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. She texted him. No response. She stood on the sidewalk trying to figure out what to do. She saw a police station across the street. She went inside. She explained the situation to the officer at the desk. She said her boyfriend had left her in a strange town without a car. The officer said, "Did you two have a fight?" Julia said, "No. I mean, yes, but that is not the point. Something is not right. I think he is planning something." The officer said, "What do you think he is planning?" But people kept coming to our room. He kept lying about it. And now he is gone, and my key does not work. The officer said, "It sounds like you two had a disagreement and he left. That is not a crime." Julia said, "He took my car keys. I cannot leave." The officer said, "Were they his keys or yours?" Julia said, "Mine. But he drove here." The officer said, "So the car is yours?" Julia said, "Yes." The officer said, "Where is the car parked?" Julia said, "At the hotel." The officer said, "Then walk back to the hotel and get in your car. If you have a spare key at home, you can call a locksmith." Julia did not have a spare key. She kept her spare at home 3 hours away. She said, "I cannot get into my car without the key." The officer said, "Then I suggest you call a friend or family member to bring you a key, or call a locksmith to meet you here." Julia felt helpless. She said, "Can you at least help me figure out where Michael went?" The officer said, "We do not track people unless they are missing or wanted for a crime. If he does not respond to your calls and you are worried about him, you can file a missing persons report in 24 hours. Julia left the police station. She felt like crying. She went back to the hotel. She stood in the parking lot, looking at her car. She tried the door. Locked. She looked through the window. Her keys were not in the ignition. Michael had them. She went back to the hotel lobby. The same man was at the desk. Julia said, "Can I use your phone to make a call?" The man said, "There is a payphone around the corner." Julia did not have cash for a payphone. She said, "Can I please just use your phone? It is an emergency." The man hesitated. Then he handed her the desk phone. Julia called her best friend Marie. Marie answered. Julia explained everything. Marie said she would leave right away. She said she would bring the spare key. Julia thanked her. She hung up and gave the phone back to the man. He said, "You can wait in the lobby if you want." Julia sat down in one of the chairs near the fireplace. She checked her phone. Still no messages from Michael. She tried calling again. Voicemail. She opened her social media. She checked his accounts. He had not posted anything. 3 hours later, Marie arrived. Julia was so relieved she almost cried. Marie hugged her and asked if she was okay. Julia said she would explain in the car. Marie gave her the spare key. They went to Julia's car. Julia unlocked it and got in. That is when she saw it. An envelope on the driver's seat. Her name was on it. Julia's hands were shaking. She opened it. Inside was a note. It said, "I know you were going to leave me. I know you have been thinking about it for weeks. I wanted to see how you would react when I took away your control. Now you know how it feels. Enjoy the drive home." Julia felt sick. She showed the note to Marie. Marie said, "What the hell?" "We need to call the police." Julia said, "They already told me there is nothing they can do." Marie said, "This is psychological abuse. This is not okay." Julia said, "I know. I just want to go home." They drove back to the city. Julia was quiet the whole time. She kept thinking about the note, about how Michael had planned this, how he had coordinated with the hotel staff, how he had watched her panic, how he had left the note in her car, knowing she would eventually find it. When she got home, she blocked his number. She blocked him on all social media. She told her friends and family what happened. She filed a police report, even though she did not think it would go anywhere. 2 weeks later, she got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of her in the hotel parking lot, standing next to her car looking through the window. Someone had taken it that night. Someone had been watching. Julia moved. She changed her phone number. She started seeing a therapist. She filed for a restraining order. But Michael never contacted her again. He just disappeared. No calls. No texts. No emails. Just that one photo, proving he had been there, proving he had been in control the whole time. Julia told me she still does not know how much of it was planned. Did he coordinate with the hotel staff? Were they in on it? Or were they just doing their jobs? Did he pay them? Did he know them? She does not know. She said the worst part was the realization the moment she understood that the entire trip was a setup, that he had not taken her away to be romantic. He had taken her away to test her, to see how she would react when she had no control, to punish her for wanting to leave him. She said she should have trusted her instincts sooner. She should have left the moment she felt uneasy. But she did not want to seem paranoid. She did not want to ruin the trip. She wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and that is what he counted on. And the final story, Julia's story, has an ending I did not share. An ending that still makes me feel cold when I think about it. After Julia got home from that trip, after she blocked Michael and filed the restraining order, after she thought it was over, she started noticing things. Small things. Her apartment door would be unlocked when she came home. She knew she had locked it. She always checked twice. But the lock would be undone. Things would be moved. A picture frame turned slightly. A book on her nightstand that she had left on her desk. A glass in her sink that she had put in the dishwasher. She changed her locks. Again and again. But it kept happening. She installed cameras. She reviewed the footage obsessively. She never saw anyone enter. But things still moved. She started to think she was losing her mind. That maybe she was forgetting things. That maybe the stress was making her paranoid. But then she found the note. It was tucked into her calendar. On Valentine's Day, the following year. She had not looked at that page yet. It was only January. But when she flipped ahead to check a date, she saw it. A small piece of paper, folded, with her name on it. She opened it. It said, "I told you I would visit." Julia called the police. They came. They looked at the calendar. They took the note as evidence. They checked the apartment. They found no signs of forced entry. They asked if anyone else had a key. Julia said no. She had changed the locks 4 times. Only she had keys. The police said someone must have picked the lock or found another way in. They said to install better locks. A deadbolt. A chain. A security bar. Julia did all of it. But 2 weeks later, she found another note. This one was in her bathroom, tucked behind the mirror. It said, "You cannot keep me out." Julia moved. She did not tell anyone where she was going except her employer and her lawyer. She rented a new apartment in a different part of the city. She changed her phone number. She bought new furniture so nothing from her old place would be in her new place. She tried to start fresh. For 3 months, nothing happened. She started to breathe again. She started to think maybe it was over. Then one day she came home from work and found a Valentine's card on her kitchen counter. She had not left a card there. She had not received any mail. Someone had been inside. Someone had left it there. The card said, "Happy Valentine's Day. I know you thought you got away." Julia broke down. She called her lawyer. She called the police. She called a locksmith. She had everything changed again. Locks, security codes, keys. She installed motion sensors, cameras, alarms. She made her apartment a fortress. But it did not matter, because whoever was doing this was not breaking in through the door. They were getting in another way, a way Julia had not thought of. Her lawyers suggested she hire a private investigator, someone who specialized in surveillance and security. Julia did. The investigator came to her apartment. He checked everything: the windows, the doors, the locks, the vents, the walls, and then he found it: a small hole behind the bookshelf. It led to the apartment next door. Someone had drilled through the wall, quietly, carefully, over time. The hole was just big enough for a small camera, or a hand, or a tool to unlock the door from the inside. The investigator checked the apartment next door. It was vacant. It had been vacant for 2 months. The landlord said no. One had been inside. The investigator found evidence. Sleeping bags, food wrappers, bottles. Someone had been living there, temporarily, just long enough to access Julia's apartment. The police were called. They searched the vacant apartment. They found more notes, dozens of them, all addressed to Julia, all dated, all planned out, notes for every month for the next year, all of them referencing Valentine's Day, all of them proving that this was not over. They also found photos, photos of Julia, taken through the hole in the wall, photos of her sleeping, photos of her getting dressed, photos of her sitting on her couch, watching TV, completely unaware she was being watched. The police launched a full investigation. They tried to find Michael. They checked his address, his workplace, his phone records. He was gone. He had quit his job. He had moved out of his apartment. He had disappeared. They issued a warrant. They put out alerts. They searched databases. But Michael was smart. He knew how to hide. He knew how to stay ahead. Julia moved again, this time out of state. She did not tell anyone except her lawyer. She changed her name legally. She started over completely. It has been a year since she moved. She has not received any more notes. No more cards. No more signs that Michael is watching. But she told me she still checks the walls in her apartment. She still looks for holes. She still listens for sounds in the night. She still wakes up and checks the locks. She still lives like she is being watched, because she knows what Michael is capable of. She knows how patient he is, how careful, how determined. She knows he could be anywhere. He could have found her again. He could be waiting, planning, watching, and she will never know for sure if it is over. She will never know if he gave up or if he is just biding his time. She will never know if the next Valentine's Day will bring another card, another note, another reminder that he is still out there. That is the worst part, she said. Not the fear when it is happening, but the fear that never goes away. The knowledge that someone could be watching right now, that they could know where you are, what you are doing, what you are thinking, and you would have no idea. That is what these stories are about. Not just what happened, but what could still be happening. Not just the fear of the moment, but the fear that lasts forever. Because once someone proves they can get to you, once they prove they can find you no matter where you go, once they prove they will never stop, you are never truly free. You are always looking over your shoulder, always checking locks, always listening for sounds, always waiting for the next card, the next message, the next sign that they remember. And they always remember. Valentine's Day makes sure of that. I think about all these stories often. The Valentine cards that should not exist, the dinner reservation under the wrong name, the workplace gifts that escalated, the ex who would not stay gone, the trip that turned into a trap. They all have something in common. They all started small: a card, a text, a gift, a suggestion, things that could be explained away, things that seemed harmless until the pattern became clear. And they all involved someone who had access, access to information, access to spaces, access to routines, someone who watched long enough to learn, long enough to plan, long enough to control. Valentine's Day is supposed to be about love, about showing someone you care. But sometimes, the gestures are not about love at all. Sometimes, they are about power, about proving that someone can get close to you, that they know you, that they can reach you whenever they want. I do not know if the people in these stories ever found out who was behind it all. I do not know if they feel safe now. I do not know if it ever truly ended, or if they are just living in the space between incidents, waiting for the next card, the next gift, the next message that proves someone is still watching. What I do know is that these things happen more often than we talk about, that someone can spend weeks or months or years learning about you without you noticing, that by the time you realize what is happening, they already know everything. Where you live, where you work, what you wear, who you love, what you fear. And I know that the most dangerous people are not the ones who act impulsively, they are the ones who plan, the ones who wait, The ones who make it look like romance until you realize it is control. So if you ever receive a card from someone you cannot identify, or a gift that knows too much, or an invitation that feels wrong, trust that feeling, document it. Tell someone, make yourself harder to reach. Because the person sending it is counting on you to dismiss it, to rationalize it, to give them more time. And time is what they need. Time to watch, time to learn, time to get closer. Valentine's Day is supposed to be about connection, but sometimes the connection is not mutual. Sometimes it is one-sided, and sometimes the person reaching out is not looking for love. They are looking for access, and once they have it, they will not let go easily. These stories stay with me because they could happen to anyone, because they started with something small and ordinary, because the people involved did what anyone would do. They tried to be polite. They tried to be rational. They tried to give people the benefit of the doubt. But doubt is dangerous when someone is watching, when someone is planning, when someone has already decided that you belong to them, whether you know it or not. So this Valentine's Day and every Valentine's Day after, pay attention to the gifts that feel too personal, to the messages that know too much, to the gestures that seem romantic but leave you uneasy, because your instincts are smarter than your desire to be polite. And your safety is more important than someone else's feelings. And if something feels wrong, it probably is. Even if you cannot prove it yet, even if no one else sees it, even if it seems like you are overreacting, trust yourself. Protect yourself. Get distance. Get help. Get out. Because the alternative is waiting to see what happens next. And by then, it might be too late. Julia told me something else too. Something she did not share with most people. She said that sometimes, late at night, she wonders if Michael is reading about this story, if he knows she is sharing what happened, if it makes him angry, or if it makes him feel powerful, like he won, like he proved his point. She said she hopes other people read this and learn from it, that they pay attention to the small signs, that they trust their instincts, that they do not wait until it is too late, because these stories are not just warnings, they are proof. Proof that these things happen. Proof that ordinary people become targets. Proof that love can be weaponized. Proof that Valentine's Day can be twisted into something dark. And proof that once you have been watched, once you have been hunted, once you have been controlled, you carry that fear with you forever. It changes how you see the world, how you see people, how you see yourself. So remember these stories. Remember that danger does not always look dangerous, that threats do not always sound threatening, that the person watching you might be someone you know, someone you trusted, someone you loved. And remember that your safety is not negotiable. Your instincts are valid, your fear is real, and you deserve to feel secure in your own life, your own home, your own skin. This Valentine's Day, and every day after, choose yourself, choose awareness, because the people in these stories did not have that choice. By the time they realized what was happening, the watcher already had too much power. Do not let that happen to you.